Chapter 16. A Golden Watch. A Girl Who Jumped. It began with a golden watch, the kind that glints under cheap bar lights, announcing its owner's wealth more loudly than any words. I first noticed it on a man's wrist while serving drinks at a hush-hush VIP gathering that Bekir orchestrated. The watch's face was wide, encrusted with faux diamonds, its ticking second hand seeming to mock me. He introduced himself in Russian as Leonid, a businessman from some city I had never heard of. The first thing he did was flaunt that watch, lifting his wrist to catch the overhead light. He was older, maybe in his 40s, hair thinning but styled meticulously. He had the same hungry gaze I had come to know in so many men. We were in the back room of a seedy lounge, a scattered group of VIPs, sipping expensive liquor. I hovered near the edges, forced to serve them or provide company if beckoned. Leonid's watch caught my eye each time I passed, its gleam like a predator's grin in the shadows. When he finally singled me out, motioning me closer, he tapped the watch face. "Beautiful, isn't it?" he said in heavily accented Russian. "Costs more than your monthly rent, devushka." I forced a tight smile. "I'm sure it does." Inside, my stomach churned. That watch felt like a totem of everything that rotted my world. Excess wealth, arrogance, the power men held to buy and sell me on a whim. As the night wore on, Leonid shifted from mild conversation to overt proposition. He told me he could save me from my pitiful job, that I would look lovely on his arm in Moscow or Dubai. The watch winked with each gesture, as though it joined his proposition. I let him talk, half dissociated, recalling how often men's help turned out to be new chains. Meanwhile, Bekir eyed me, expecting compliance. The watch's ticking second hand seemed to measure my crumbling resistance. I stifled the urge to laugh bitterly. A golden watch, a dead heart. That phrase flickered in my mind, summing up the emptiness beneath Leonid's showy wealth. In the end, I deflected his invitations, lying that I had obligations in Istanbul. He slid me his card anyway, smirking, watch flashing. "Think about it. Life is short. Why waste it here?" I pocketed the card, heart heavy. I wanted to say, because at least I know this city's nightmares, but I stayed silent, stepping away with forced grace. A few nights later, news reached Lulu. "A girl jumped," they whispered. She had leaped from a hotel balcony near Taksim. No one in the underworld recognized her name at first. Some said she was a Russian tourist, others believed she was a trafficked girl driven to despair. The only certain fact was her lifeless body found on the pavement at dawn, paramedics covering her with a white sheet. The rumors swirled. Some claims said she'd left a note about her family in Belarus. Others insisted she had no ID, just a handful of crumpled lira. The city's gossip machine hummed with speculation. I felt sick, wondering if I had ever crossed paths with her, or if she had been one of the girls with heavy bags. As usual, Istanbul's official response was minimal. A brief mention in a local paper, overshadowed by other news. People at the shops kept working. Tourists still took photos near monuments. Men still prowled clubs. Taksim's nighttime roar resumed as if no tragedy had occurred. Zara told me she overheard some older men scoffing. "These girls cannot handle life here. They are too weak." The cruelty of it made my blood boil. A girl ended her life and they dismissed it as weakness. No mention of the monstrous pressures that might have cornered her on that balcony's edge. One slow afternoon, I was in the leather box's back room with Zara, half dozing, when she brought up Leonid's watch. "You know that fancy guy you told me about?" she asked. I heard he was staying at the same hotel where the girl jumped. My heart lurched. "Are you sure?" She shrugged. "The timeline fits. He had a suite on a high floor. People said they saw him with a young woman earlier that night." Her voice trembled. "Maybe it is just rumor. But can you imagine if he was the last person she saw?" My mind reeled, recalling how he bragged about his fortune, how his watch glimmered under neon lights, how each tick felt like a countdown. Could the girl have been coerced into meeting him, realized the hopelessness of her situation, and chosen that final leap? Or was it a different man, a different tragedy? Either way, the city's cruelty overshadowed the watch's superficial shine. I could not shake the phrase from my thoughts. If indeed Leonid was connected to the girl's final night, then his watch was more than a symbol of wealth. It was a sign of a heart hollowed out by greed, turning him into one more predator who saw us as disposable. The girl might have felt no escape besides that fatal drop. That mental image haunted me, a shimmering watch worn by a man with no empathy, stepping away from a balcony while a desperate girl perched on its edge, ignoring his worthless promises. I found myself staring at the sky at night, imagining how it looked from 10 stories high, the wind on her face as she made the final decision. My chest tightened, tears threatening every time I pictured it. A few days later, Zara confirmed a partial truth. Leonid was indeed staying at that hotel near Taksim, on a floor high enough that a leap would be fatal. A bartender recognized him from photos, said he brought a girl there. The next morning, she was gone. By midnight, the staff discovered her body. Leonid apparently checked out quickly, leaving behind an unpaid bar tab. As word spread, disgust settled in my stomach. If that man had any remorse, he showed none. His watch and suitcases likely took him to the next city, the next victim. Meanwhile, the girl's name might never be known, her family never discovering how she died. When I told my mother bits of the rumor, her face went ashen. She clutched me as though I might vanish too. "Promise me you'll never do that," she whispered, voice trembling. "No matter how hopeless you feel, please, just don't." I nodded, tears brimming. "I promise, Mama." But inside, I shuddered, recalling nights when despair sank its claws into me. The girl who jumped was a chilling reminder that we all stand at the brink sometimes in Istanbul's underworld. Fate twisted the knife deeper a week later, when I unexpectedly ran into Leonid at another late-night event. My skin prickled the moment I recognized his watch glinting across the room. For an instant, I froze. He too paused upon seeing me, then offered a smirk. I forced myself to approach him, adrenaline surging. "I heard about the girl who died at your hotel," I said, voice shaking but firm. "Was she with you?" He blinked in surprise. A flicker of annoyance darted across his features. Then he scoffed, swirling brandy in his glass. "I have no idea what you're talking about," he said in dismissive Russian. "Some girls cannot handle their liquor, that's all. Not my responsibility." My rage nearly boiled over. "She jumped off a balcony," I hissed, ignoring the caution in my head. "Don't you feel anything?" He stared at me coldly, watch gleaming. I did not push her. She made her own choice. This city is tough. If she was too weak, it is on her. My stomach clenched in revulsion. He turned away, as if our conversation bored him, casually greeting another man. A wave of nausea and fury left me trembling. The watch might as well have been caked in blood. I retreated, tears burning my eyes, disgust and heartbreak colliding in my chest. I found Zara soon after, voice quivering as I recounted the exchange. She hugged me, rubbing my back. "He's not worth a single tear," she muttered, though tears blurred her own vision. But that poor girl. None of us even knows her name. We stood in a dim corridor, hearts heavy. A golden watch, a girl who jumped. Two sides of this city's story, the affluent predator versus the victim trapped into an extreme decision. Another grim reminder that Istanbul gave no second chances to some of us. In the days following my confrontation with Leonid, I learned the hush that typically followed such tragedies. Staff at the hotel refused to speak about it. The police performed a cursory investigation, concluding it was suicide. No deeper inquiry into her life or connections, no mention of the man with the watch. The city simply moved on. At the leather box, Mustafa warned me not to harass VIPs again. He said Leonid was a valuable client who might invest in future deals. I felt physically ill, but I had run out of fight that night. My mother's boyfriend noticed my mood and sneered. "Still upset about some random girl? Get over it." My mother, white-faced, quietly pressed money into my hand as if to console me. I found myself lying awake at night, replaying the image of a balcony on Taksim's skyline. I imagined the dead girl's final moments. Did she press her palms to the railing, heart pounding, tears streaming? Did she glance at the city lights and think them mocking illusions? Did she have a mother waiting somewhere who might never know the truth? As I tossed in bed, I realized how close I had come to that same edge in my darkest moments. The difference might be the fragile bond I had with my mother, The vow not to leave her behind, the small support from Zara. That tenuous lifeline was all that separated me from the girl who jumped. Weeks later, as I walked near Aksaray, I glimpsed a golden flash among the crowd. My chest seized. For a split second, I thought it was Leonid again. But the man turned, revealing a different face. Same type of watch though, large, gaudy, proclaiming, "I have money, so I own you." It was like the city repeated the same details in different players. A watch, a brand of cologne, a leer. The moral, countless men with the same dead hearts roamed these streets, unconcerned with whose souls they destroyed. I shivered, crossing the street quickly. I shared my anxieties with my mother one evening when the man was out. She listened, eyes wet, hugging me close. "I know you're haunted by what happened," she said. "But you are alive, Inna. We have each other. Let us keep pressing forward." She told me, in hushed tones, that her folded dollars prayers now included the nameless girl. My mother prayed for her soul, as if to atone for the city's indifference. My heart ached. We did not even know that girl, but her memory bound us more fiercely in the desire to escape. The city never offered a tidy resolution to the girl who jumped. She faded into rumor. Leonid presumably left to prowl another market, brandishing his watch, confident no one would link him to tragedy. The average citizen forgot her name if they ever knew it. But I carried her story as a silent caution. Istanbul would let you climb high, only to push you if you faltered. The theme of the watch recurred in smaller ways. Another wealthy client flashed a Rolex, yet I saw no warmth in his eyes. Another bragged about diamond-studded timepieces, offering to buy me one if I would amuse him. Each instance reminded me, a golden watch is meaningless if the man wearing it has a dead heart. Zara teased me once for being obsessed with men's watches. I explained I could not help it. They symbolized that lethal mix of money and soullessness. She fell quiet, nodding. "We cling to these metaphors to stay sane," she said. "Yours is the watch. Mine is the empty cologne bottle. We see them as warnings." Despite the bleakness, I resolved not to follow the path of that girl on the balcony. If I left Istanbul, it would not be by leaping from a building but by crossing a real border with my mother in tow. The watch fiasco and the tragic leap had hammered home the stark reality. Men like Leonid felt no remorse, so we had to save ourselves. I took each new forced encounter with a numbness that was less about despair and more about determination. If a man's watch gleamed in my face, I had let it remind me why I needed to run. If I heard rumors of another girl gone missing, I had let it stoke my urgency. The city's violence was a constant drumbeat pushing me forward. Not long after, Zara mentioned she might actually leave soon. Her potential savior was finalizing plans. She would be one of those who never look back. We embraced tearfully in a small cafe. "What about you?" she asked, voice thick with emotion. I took a shaky breath. "I'll find a way," I said. "I cannot let this place kill me or my mother, even if it leaves me scarred." We parted with no promise of seeing each other again, a bitter taste in my mouth. I thought of that girl who jumped, how nobody knew her story in full. And I remembered Leonid's watch, how it still ticked, measuring time for more tragedies. The city marched on, indifferent. But I was done letting it crush me. I would cling to life, even if life was a battered tapestry of tears and regrets. For a while, I held a private ritual in my head for the girl who jumped. Each dawn, after a night's forced labor, I would stand at the apartment window, staring at the cityscape. I would close my eyes, whisper an apology that she didn't get to see another day. I would vow not to let them push me over the same edge. In this whispered funeral, I laid her memory to rest with the hope that she found peace away from Istanbul's cruelty. My mother must have sensed something because she joined me one morning, silently placing a hand on my shoulder. No words needed, she too was mourning. Maybe she was mourning what we all lost in this city. Innocence, safety, illusions. One last note, I had a dream in which the golden watch soared through the air, dropping from a high balcony. Instead of a body, it was the watch that shattered on the pavement, scattering gears and faux diamonds. I jolted awake, tears on my cheeks, unsure if it symbolized my own fragile soul or the men's illusions. Either way, I woke determined to keep going. The watch, the girl, the city's infinite heartbreak, they spurred me to cling to my mother's hand and push forward. If we managed to exit Istanbul one day, maybe we would not look back, but we would carry these stories in our bones, never truly clean, yet refusing to be among the lost souls who jumped with no tomorrow.